Hello students, welcome to the pole science of class 12 arts, and today we will discuss questions and answers, and these questions and answers are related to India's nuclear policy, and several questions are there also from different topics like India-Israel relations and so on. So let us proceed discussing about the questions and answers related to all these important topics. So the first question related to this topic is, what was India's attitude towards Israel after 45 years of independence? So answer would be, during this period India's attitude towards Israel, the only Islamic nation in the region, remained unexplored. Notwithstanding the two nations gaining independence from the British colonial rule in 1947 and 48 respectively. That means what? From the British rule, both these countries, that is India and Israel, got independence. That means India got independence in the year 1947 and Israel got independence in the year 1948. So talking about Israel, Israel is the only Islamic state in that region. Clear? And regarding relations of Israel with India, India's attitudes towards Israel was that after independence and even after 45 years of independence also, India's relations with Israel was complicated because that area was actually unexplored between the two nations. That means diplomatic relations between these two nations actually started lately. That means you can assume that after 50 years. Before that, their relation could not explore, or their relation could not reach to a good level because both the countries remained unexplored to each other. But they had gained independence way before in 1947 and 48 respectively. After that, question number 2, when was Israel embassy opened in India? So Israel embassy actually opened in India in the year 1992. After the diplomatic relations were started, after that only the Israeli embassy was opened in the year 1992. Now question number 3, India's nuclear policy have always been peace oriented. Justify the statement in brief. As we know that India was never in of a mind that being the nuclear, or India being the nuclear country, India was not in a favor of using nuclear weapon first, and it was in the minds of the government that India will only use the nuclear weapon when it is to defend. So regarding that only, India's nuclear policy has always been peace oriented. We have to justify the statement. So answer would be, the India's nuclear policy have always been peace oriented, whose clear impression is reflected in the policy of no first use. That means it will not first use the nuclear weapon, it will only use the nuclear weapon in order to defend. But in view of contemporary regional security challenges, the present government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi made it clear that the policy of no first use can be reviewed and changed in consonance with India's regional and national security. That means up to 2014 it was their policy of not using the nuclear policy first. But the current government led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi has made some changes, or is thinking about to make changes, that whatever the no first use of nuclear weapon is there, that can actually be reviewed and changed if needed. He, along with his government officials, are in a reviewing positions, and they are also in a mood to change after discussing with officials and also reviewing the national security. If it is needed, then no first use can be changed also at that time. In addition, India is committed to ensure its membership in the nuclear suppliers group and opposing partition and unjust unclear treaties like CTBT and NPT. That means India is in a favor, and India is also hopeful that India should be included in nuclear suppliers group, where it will be treated every country under NSG, that means nuclear suppliers group will be treated equal, and it is opposing against treaties like CTBT and NPT, which does not treat every country equally. After that comes question number 4. Write a note on India-Israel relations. So nearly 45 years after independence, due to various reasons, India's foreign policy in the Middle East region, now called West Asian region, and India's relations with West Asian countries were mainly concentrated with Islamic countries. As we know that whatever the Middle East region in which Israel was there, and now that Middle East region is known as West Asian region. So in that West Asian region, Israel is the only country which has Islamic population. So during this period, India's attitude towards Israel, the only non-Islamic nation in the region, remained unexplored, because they never had good relations before that, and they achieved independence in the year 1947 and 48 respectively. Though historical and cultural ties between India and Israel have existed from times immemorial, diplomatic relations formally developed between the two after the opening of Israeli embassy in India in 1992. So according to the answer, it says that historical and cultural ties were there way before, but the diplomatic relations were not good and was not started also. When the diplomatic relations started, it actually started when Israeli embassy was formally set up in India in 1992. But even after the establishment of formal diplomatic relations, the relations between the two countries started gaining firmness only after the formation of BJP-led NDA governments in 96 and 98 onwards. Relationship between the two democratic governments further intensified with the visits of two heads of the government, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Israel in 2017 and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to India in 2018. That means what? Earlier the relations was not good, but these relations started to begin on a good note during the NDA-led BJP government. When there was a BJP government led by NDA, that was in the year 1996 and 98 onwards, this relation started to become on a good note. And this even became better when the two heads of the country, that is the Prime Minister of India, visited Israel in 2017 and Prime Minister of Israel visited India in 2018. So at that time the relations became far more better than the previous meetings. The two nations have started cooperation in various fields like cultural exchange, security and defense, counter-terrorism, space research, water and energy, and agricultural development. Clear? So apart from exchanging ideas and apart from the two prime ministers visiting each other's country, India Israel also have started cooperation in various fields. Cooperation in the sense means they are cooperating in the fields like cultural exchange, security and defense, counter-terrorism, space research, water and energy, and agricultural development, etc. So these are all the other fields that both the nations are having or sharing ideas. So with this I will wind up today's topic based on India-Israel relations and the nuclear policy of India. and don't forget to note down these questions and answers in your copy. So I'm winding up today's topic. Thank you.